Hello and welcome to Paradigm Playbook, a podcast for entrepreneurs in the business of sports. Your hosts, Dave Kozak and Steve Cook, are business owners, successful entrepreneurs, sports enthusiasts, avid readers, and longtime friends. For years, they've read every business book on the market and built successful companies with what they've learned. This podcast will give you the critical takeaways in just 15 minutes a week. It's a quick and easy playbook for building a winning sports business. And now, here are your hosts, Dave and Steve.
If you know a coach, teacher, or business owner who could use our help, please refer them to us. We appreciate your support. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Paradigm Playbook. Today, we have a special edition of Playmakers, and we're interviewing Christie Copeland. Steve, you've been working with Christie off and on and in the social world and everything, trying to, and I think this is going to be a great interview because it's all of the things we talk about put into one conversation, right?
Yeah. So Christie and I have clients in common. That,
Okay.
I'm helping with their business expansion, changing their facilities, things like that. And Christie's helping with their marketing. So they kind of go in tandem, getting everything out. But throughout the process, Christie's then been helping me with my social media, my, our web presence and all those things. So it's kind of all tied together.
First of all, Christie,
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So rather than me read off your history, can you give us the 2-minute version of what got you here and what your connection is to the sports world?
Sure, I'll try that. I was a so-so athlete in gymnastics as a child. I ended up working part-time to coach during college to make some extra money to pay the bills. Ended up deciding I didn't want to climb the corporate ladder like I'd originally planned. And then I opened a gym at the same time working in the automotive industry. So I have 35 years in the automotive industry, and I'm a data analyst there. I owned a gym at the same time in Michigan for 19 years, sold that in 2018 and branched into the world of marketing because I like the psychology behind it. I like technology. It kind of brings it all together, lets me do some coaching still since I don't coach kids anymore. And so that's kind of the full, 2 minutes or less version of what got me here today.
So my first question then is, and this comes up a lot with our clients. So what was the tipping point that got you to decide to sell the gym club?
So I didn't plan to sell it when I did, but I always used third level consulting, and I had valuations done all along the way where I knew what my business was worth. And I had just done a valuation late 2017, I think. And I started just telling people about it and joking around with a few people like, hey, you think you want to own a gym someday? And it come to find out one of the people who worked for someone else, they wanted a second gym. So they came in, bought my gym. My timing was impeccable with respect to being 2018 pre-COVID. So I was very happy that it worked out that way. Actually, she's very successful still owning the gym in Michigan. I'm still good friends with them. And so it all worked out great. But it was actually about 5 years sooner than I planned to sell, but I was just prepared at any point in time to be ready. And I think that's key really with any business is to always have that end in mind because you just don't know when that opportunity is going to come your way.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point to reiterate from all the, 50 some episodes we've done. We talk about the idea of you have to create opportunity, right? And in that moment, you had the valuation, you had the number, and you started to spread it like, hey, here, in kind of in jest initially, but ultimately, when you say things like that, people hear, people start thinking about it. Reminds me of the Pat Crotry story about buying the Sixers.
Mm-hmm.
When his whole thing was he wanted to buy more. He was a minority owner and he wanted to buy more. And he went to I think it was King. Was that King who owned that? I forget his name, whoever owned it. And he said, I have no interest in selling a piece. And all he heard from that was, well, maybe I could buy the whole thing. And that was the inspiration between him buying the Sixers. So, fortune favors the prepared mind. And so in that case, being prepared and opportunity strikes and you take advantage of it.
So Christie and I both have experience in the gymnastic club market, mine from a different side. But I will tell you, her mindset going in and the preparation and having the evaluations done is not common. So a lot of the clients we see now are kind of running by the seat of their pants, and they're not getting to that point where they're built to sell. So I think that was unique for you. Is that your education base coming in there? Why were you prepared for that?
I think so. I mean, I have a business degree, finance specialty, and just that piece of it. I've always loved the numbers. And I always hear about people who hate the numbers. I did all my own bookkeeping. I do bookkeeping now as well for some others. And I just always loved looking at the numbers. So it was intriguing to me to see my numbers. I think I did my first one 4 or 5 years in because, you always have the businesses fail within the first so many years. And I was like, well, I survived. I made it. Let's see what it's worth. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for what it's worth. I got to keep going. And so my goal was to get a valuation every 5 years. And that was roughly what I did.
Yeah. And I mean, from the onset, data analyst, you got to have data to analyze, right? It's in your DNA and in what you're doing. So awesome stuff. Was when after you got that first valuation, right? 4 years in, and we all know what that feels like, where it's like it's just not worth as much as you would hope for the amount of time, effort, and energy you put in. Were you able to set new targets, and did that inspire you to do different things? Did that inspire you to expand the business or expand what you were offering? What did that do at that onset, right? Because I think a lot of the entrepreneurs want to know, like, how do I know when I should be doing something more, or when I have something that is living and can expand?
Yeah, I think that definitely did. We went through a series of 5 total expansions, 3 true facility moves. And each time, I think, and I never owned my building. And I know a lot of people say that was a mistake. For me, that was the right thing to do. And for others, I think a lot of times it makes sense to buy, but each building wasn't ideal for us to own the whole entire building. So each time negotiated a better lease, had goals for growing. And honestly, the big jump for me was when I went to full office hours. I hear people say, oh, I can't afford a person in the office all day, every day. And I've talked to others in the cheer world and different worlds that say, once I did, it was amazing, the growth, because those calls that you're missing, having that person that's there to greet every person that walks in the door, that was a huge jump for us. And then we just kept growing. Now, my gym was located just outside of Flint, Michigan. And so we were in a kind of rural suburban area. We're not big city. And we definitely went through, we're heavily automotive based. So 2007-8 was pretty rough during that time period. But each time, we came through great and ended up the final gym. We started at about 6,300 square feet. The final gym was about 22,000. And I think always knowing, I'm kind of jumping all over, sorry about that, but I think knowing your break even numbers is really good. And then determining, like you say, where you want to expand, whether it's in programs, in size, in staff, in coverage, that sort of thing.
One of the conflicts I sometimes have with clients is a rapid growth or grow too soon, and maintaining the return per square foot, which is a big deal to me. I look at that all the time, even in my own facility. But at any point, did your return per square foot go down when you expanded?
The one that surprised me was the final move, because I never wanted to move more than 3 miles from where we were, because you do the math and people drop. They don't want to drive an extra mile. Mm-hmm. We moved less than a mile from our location. And when we did that switch, we actually still lost people, even though we moved less than a mile away. And it was a better facility, better parking, you name it. And it took a little while to build back up there, but that was it. And, with the gymnastics world, Michigan in the summer, you always have the ebbs and flows of losing students in the summer due to them actually wanting to be outside during the 3 months of the year that it's nice here. But besides that,
there's
not
3
really.
months in Michigan?
Optimistically, right?
Yeah.
So I want to reflect back on something you said that hit a chord with me. I preach a lot about if you want to be successful in business, you have to take yourself seriously. And when you made mention of going to office hours, meaning somebody was there to man the facility, to man the phones, to be a face and a greeter, just all around open, that's taking a business seriously at that moment. And that is when you expand, because a lot of people, they dabble, right? And they play. And it's like, well, we open at 3:00 in the afternoon because that's when people can come in, or we open at different times. But when you structure a business around working hours, you're making yourself available for people to get involved, right? And so I think that's a huge point in taking a sports business seriously is, yeah, you should have someone that is there. Obviously, it comes at an expense. But what I think people fear is the expense of that person versus the growth that they don't know is going to happen as a result of that person. And it's the fear factor that keeps people from doing it.
And I think
so kudos to you.
And I think the argument today too could be, well, they can sign up online. They can, everything's digital, but there's still so much of that personal touch that's the one thing is I talk to so many clients that think marketing is social media and website. I'm like, there's so much more than that to it. And I think that, we did the caller ID thing, which, phones even now, people are like, I don't want to talk on the phone. We called back every single missed call, whether they left a message or not. We checked with them because, a lot of people don't like leaving a message. They just hang up. And it was so worth it. I think that investigating that, like you said, is just a great idea for anybody who's getting started and thinking that the risk outweighs the benefit.
Well, I think you're faced with, and we've talked about this on the show before, where person getting involved in gymnastics and basketball, football, baseball, whatever the sport is, they're going through a list of local facilities trying to get a lesson or trying to get into something. And if you're the one facility that picks up the phone, answers the phone, or responds to the email during the in that immediate sort of customer service exchange, you're going to get that client. And so, and that's not to mention the person that's driving home from work sees the facility one day and says, next time I get out early, I'm going to stop in there. They stop in, someone's there to talk to them and introduce them to what you guys do, versus the facility where they hit the door and it's locked. It's a big time move for sure.
I'm going to kind of flip the conversation a little bit, but before I do, Dave, I think Christie's a good example of what you always say about working on the business more than you work in the business. So we need more entrepreneurs to make that flip like Christie did and work on the business and allow. But many of our clients come from coaching backgrounds and they have trouble giving up the coaching part of the job. And instead they give up the marketing part of the job.
Or the business end of the job.
Yeah, it's all. So my next question, Christie, is, so I understand the transition and the business background and all that, but why marketing? That seems a little bit of a disconnect when you're the numbers person and the data analyst.
Well, and one quick thing on a point you made is it was hard for me to give up the coaching because I loved coaching the highest level athletes in the gym, and they take the most time. You make the least amount of money from them. You're traveling all the time, but that was very hard. But once I got to the point that I could do just that, and I had my directors for preschool and recreational and all the different departments, it still allowed me to coach them and to do the business piece. But marketing, I saw Dave nodding. I think he's like predicting what I'm going to say. Number one, psychology is I loved coaching Balance Beam. That was my absolute favorite event to coach. It's mainly psychological. You'll say, it's, 20% talent and the rest is up here. And marketing is a lot of that too. It's understanding how the client thinks, what they want, what they're looking for. And so to me, it's a lot like Balance Beam. You gotta figure out what works. And then there's so much measurement. You can measure how many more followers, how many leads, what was the return. Any event that we did out in the community, we did a ton in the community. I would go, if we go to this event, it costs us $1,000, let's just say, to be at that event. And, we average tuition $100 a month. So 10 kids come for 1 month, or we get 3 birthday parties or whatever it was. I always like to do that comparison. So it's that mesh of the psychology with the numbers, with the tracking, all that I think kind of comes together.
Well, and I speak on this often, which is if I had it to do over again, and I have a business degree and an economics degree, and I've got several successful businesses. The one area that I am now at my level focused completely on is marketing across the board, because it is where everything starts. I'll talk about, restaurants open. And I say to a restaurant, if you're going to build out a restaurant and you have a specific budget, 30% of your budget should go towards marketing from the get-go, or you're not going to get the people in the door. They're going to trickle in, instead of you need a full restaurant day one to make back the money that you're talking about. And so for and I do the same. We go out and give presentations across the country, and all I ever want to know is how many people do I need to enroll or sign up to cover the cost of that event. That's where I'm going to start. I need to capture those people. From there, then we'll build on what it is. But I spend more time in my daily practice on marketing the company than anything else, because it's if you don't bring the lifeblood in, you can't process people through. You can't retain clients. You can't expand your business model. You have to do that part well.
I fully accept both of your rationale for why it became important in your lives, and marketing's important. And now where Christie's given back to that community, as a consultant, as a trainer, as a speaker. But would you agree that marketing isn't high on most entrepreneurs' minds when they start the business?
Are you ready to learn and discover new ideas? We want to hear from you. Share your questions, thoughts, and ideas for the Paradigm Playbook podcast. We value your input and want to create episodes that match your interests. Leave a comment or send us an email at playbook@paradigmplaybook.com.
I do. And I think it's confusing now. Like, so many think if I do 3 Facebook posts a week, that's my marketing. I've met with several clients in the last probably 3 or 4 weeks that I ask, what's your annual plan? What's your marketing plan? What events do you do? What emails do you do? Nothing is on a calendar planned. And there are so many things that I understand time is money. But if you're a lot of times you're, when you first own the business, you're the plumber, you're the coach, you're the, bookkeeper, you're everything. I'm like, your most inexpensive thing, especially now with our friends of AI, is to create those few emails to reach out to your leads and your current students. I mean, people are already there, already loyal, buying in. Maybe there's an upsell. Maybe there's something you could do. I mean, just those little things. I find that many people are not doing that today.
Christie's been to some of my presentations, and I talk about, as part of that marketing or part of the sales side of it is telling your story. And I think that's what marketing does. If, once you create the story of why you're doing it, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, Grand Slam, we have a story about getting kids to the big field. You have the story in Paradigm Financial or Elite Collegiate Planning about, making college affordable and manageable. So I think those stories, and it takes the owner, the entrepreneur, to lead the storytelling and to get everybody else engaged in that.
Well, and I think there's a great point here where this is where I think the entrepreneurial failure happens early. And that is in the fact that when you start, in particular, a sports business, right? You're a great coach. And so I'm going to do this on my own. And people are just going to come to me because I'm a great coach. And we don't need to talk about leads. There are no leads. There is no marketing campaign. There is no salesperson. It's just, I'm a good coach. So it's going to happen by osmosis, or people are just going to flock to me. And in reality, that just doesn't happen, right? And so you talk about those 3 emails, right? The welcome to our family, the follow-up. Did you know we offer all of these services? Also, we love birthday parties, or whatever it is, that just to make the clients aware of what's going on is huge. And I think if you're going to take the entrepreneurial step as a coach or as a salesperson in a business, never discredit the value of a contact or a lead. That is your gold right there. And you have to exercise it, and you have to focus on it, right? I mean, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Well, and you guys both made a great point, is when you talked about your story, you're doing the perfect thing. You're like, the marketing model is, so many people want to say, I have a clean gym. We sanitize our but the whole thing is I want my kid to make it to the big field. I want to pay less for college. If you said, our bathrooms are clean at the baseball, that's great. But when someone's looking, it's the what's in it for me and what do I want for myself or my child, versus telling me all these great things where you bought, $100,000 of state-of-the-art equipment. That means nothing to the person who just wants their preschooler to have social skills. They want to be able to interact with other children without biting them or something.
So in meeting with the clients for the first time, what's the eye opener that you see in clients that say, oh, I never thought of that as marketing, or I don't do that? What is the big flip the switch?
Well, I've just recently started to ask a list of questions, because I realized as I've been going, like, oh, I need to know a lot more as we get started. And it's the annual calendar and a schedule of events, like having it actually planned out. And when I ask that question and the answer is no to that, I haven't yet had someone give me the answer yes to that they have it on a calendar. And that was one thing, even before I even knew what I was doing at the gym, we always did that. We had our year of events that we knew, events that we'd be out at. We had our marketing items that we did. One of the things we always did was we did a picture on the shopping carts at our local grocery store. We had it where everyone's shopping and a smiling child was staring at them while they were getting their groceries. And I was like, at least I'm getting in their mind there. And each thing we had patterned out for the course of the year. And I think that's the big thing when I see their faces, is when I ask that question, they're like, they didn't have it yet. And so I think that's key too, is to plan.
Well, I think what prevents a lot of that is, with a plan comes a budget, and with a startup and a new company, you're like, well, I don't know if I can swing that, or I don't know if we should swing that, or is that the best use of our money, or should we buy that new balance beam, or where should we position things? And so I think people start to get distracted by the periphery. And when you put together an annual plan, well, this event costs $1,000 and that event costs $2,000 and this campaign's going to cost, and all of a sudden they're seeing a $25,000 number, and they're barely covering the expenses. I think people get away from that and say, oh, I just got to work harder. I got to do more lessons, or I got to do more classes, and kind of lose perspective.
We talk a lot about the lifetime value of a customer, and I think sometimes the gyms that bring a new customer in, they only look at what they pay the initial registration. They're giving me 2 months in advance, and it's $300 bill, and that's what that's worth. But if you look at, and I talk all the time about, for me, getting a 4-year-old baseball player is much more valuable than a 12-year-old, because of the lifetime value of that customer that you're bringing in, and you're calculating that down the road. So, what's the most underused form of marketing in the sports businesses that you see?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I have enough information to give that answer yet, but the one thing that I'm seeing is just plain email. It's amazing. You will ask the question and say, when's the last time you emailed your current students? When's the last time you emailed your leads? And they have it all. I mean, pretty much everyone at this point has a pretty sophisticated CRM. Even if they don't use an email marketing software, the CRM often can do the job, and people aren't using it. And that is probably the most cost-effective, easy thing to do if you do nothing else.
I hear a lot of businesses that don't use an email marketing system. They say, I'm just sending emails from Outlook or Google or whatever. But I think it's the fact that they don't have their database segmented so that you can divide it up and say, okay, I'm going to do a marketing campaign to go after 5-year-olds. So I was just at the swim school and I talked about divergent interests if you do brand marketing. So if I'm going to say that we have in our swimming pool, we are the best at managing the kids in diapers. And then you're also trying to invite 12-year-olds in there. You're going to lose somebody if your marketing campaign is trying to do all of that at one time. So I think using a MailChimp or Constant Contact or whatever it is allows you to segment your database. But then, I understand that if you don't have it planned out, it doesn't get done.
Well, I mean, go ahead, Christie. I'm sorry.
Oh, real quick. I just have one thing on that is one of the clients I talked to last night, it's a swim school, 35% adult. They're a very big split. And so you can't say splash into fun this weekend, or do you want to have your birthday party if you're 30 and you're training for a triathlon? That's a totally different thing. They probably aren't going to splash into fun. But yeah, that exactly. You've got to be able to split it up, and especially in those cases where it's drastically different.
Yeah. And I think another oversight of the young entrepreneur, and by young, I don't mean in age, I mean in experience of owning a company, is the value of the database that you have, right? They are the interested, the motivated people, right? It's much harder to go out and find new than to continue to build the ones that have expressed a certain amount of interest. And I, from the consumer side, right? If I give my email address, first of all, it's going to be tough to get my email address. I can tell you that right now. However, if I give it, I don't unsubscribe. I pay attention to everything that comes. I may never interact with that organization, but I pay attention. And by having people pay attention, and they're at a party with their friends, and somebody mentioned something, and you have an email that was just sent to you, that person says, oh, well, I just got this email from this, and they forward it right on. And all of a sudden you're just building that reputation. So even if it's not a campaign, even if you don't have the complexity to add, to send an email, if they open it, send them this one. If they don't open it, send them this one. And then send them a text or that put them on. If you don't have the sophistication of that, send an email that has everything in the least. Just lay it out for them one time. That would be a huge start. We reference books on this podcast all the time. As you know, I'm a big reader, so we're going to hit on. So Alan Dibb wrote the book, the one-page marketing plan, which I love, and I try to get. If business owners can't write a business plan, they can do one page. And then Alan Dibb talks about the before, during, and after. It's the get them to know you, get them to like you, get them to come back again, and they're the 3 phases of marketing. If there's one neglect in the sports business, which do you think they neglect more? They get to know us, get to like us, or come back again?
I thought you were going to ask me something different, so I was ready for.
Well, ask the question I didn't ask. Do that one.
So Donald Miller is really one that I love to follow. He's Story Brand, Business Made Simple. He does a lot with Michael Hyatt and Ray Edwards and a lot of copywriters. And that's the training that I actually went through. And he teaches people that in business, if you're helping, you want your customer to be the hero. You're the guide. We are Yoda in training Skywalker or whatever. So I think we make the mistake there where we talked about that earlier, but I do think, gosh, it's hard to say. I think it's your current customers are the ones who are most likely to spend more. I mean, that's a proven thing. So I do think those that are already there, that was one of your categories, right? That you said is so at least mentioning to them all the different things that you have. Like you said, if you're already here, how about a party? How about some leotards or swimsuits or goggles or whatever or baseball gloves, whatever you might have. I think those types of things. But I also think people do not, like you said, once you give that email, actually doing something with it.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one. I don't know the answer to that for sure.
Okay. So before we run out of time, I want to get back to one, your customer base, your client base, and I know you're wearing many hats right now, but your client base for consulting. You said you mentioned a client that's in swim, so you're not just strictly gymnastics.
No, the way I look at it is mainly small businesses with 50 or less. I do all of the marketing for our local chamber of commerce here. And so anything that's tied to the smaller size business, the restaurant world will be tough for me. So when Dave mentioned that, I was like, oh, I don't know that I would. So I think any client that, to me, the chamber's a lot like a gym or a swim. Yeah, I don't know why, but certain businesses seem to mesh together better. So it just depends on what. But yeah, any child activity based, to me, they're very similar. But there are others that are out there that wouldn't even be in that category that I feel are very similar as well.
I also think that you find when you talk to the owner of a small, especially a sports business, and you say, okay, who in your organization is in charge of the marketing? There isn't anyone. So the need for a consultant is probably a little bit higher on the marketing side than on the coaching side.
Yeah. And I want to add to the small business piece, because the way I look at it is you're either in a sale of a product or a service business, right? And they're not anything that's service. So the reason that Steve and I came together, I'm in the financial services industry, right? But all I am is a customer service rep that happens to have access to multiple financial products, can build a plan for people, can help them, with the college piece, but it's customer service. And so anytime you're in service business, whether it is, gymnastics or whether it's financial service, they're all the same from the core model that you have to run. They're all the same. Now, one more comment I'll make for anybody that's listening to this. Christie mentioned an author by the name of Donald Miller. And if you want to know marketing, just read Marketing Made Simple. That is, I think, probably the finest work that I've read on marketing to date to simplify it. And in that model, they don't talk about these massive, complex layered marketing plans. They show you how to do it the right way to get your story brand out and to go after it.
Yeah, excellent.
That's a great book.
We appreciate your time today to wrap things up. And I know you're in high demand, limited time available right now, but a little endorsement. I know Christie works with small businesses because she works with us, and we're basically a team of 3. So thank you for that, Christie. We appreciate all the help, and we're getting there. And so even I can be trained in this stuff. So I'm getting there. But if somebody does want to get in touch with you, where do they find you? Where on social media are you? Or if they want to just learn more about you?
So my business name is Champions Choice Consulting, and it's like the longest URL ever. So it's championschoiceconsulting.com. And I'm out there on social media, probably less than I should be. I need to take my own advice because I'm working with all these other companies right now and still working my day job. So I'm on vacation from that right now to meet with you guys. But championschoiceconsulting.com or Third Level Consulting as well is the child activity side.
Fantastic.
And now we'll try to tack that to the podcast when this goes out so people can check on the podcast and connect with you that way.
Steve, we don't need to try. We can just do that.
Oh, did I say try?
Yeah,
okay, thanks. Well, I was giving Niall
listen,
out.
You're in training. You're learning this stuff. We've already admitted it.
Okay, Niall can do anything, so we're good. Okay, well, thank you. Anything else to add before we sign off for today?
No, just thanks for having me here today. It was nice to meet Dave in person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And nice to see you and Niall too, even though he's behind the scenes. Thanks for everything.
Awesome stuff, Christie. I loved it. Great conversation, great advice for people, and just all around, I think you're doing a fantastic job.
And I will be talking to you later in the week. Thank you.
With all the noise out there, it's hard to know who to listen to. Let us help you reach your business and professional goals. Visit paradigmplaybook.com for more information.